welcome to the debate. Before we jump into things today, please take a second to like, subscribe, follow, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an exchange.
Yes, definitely do that.
And we also have a very quick update on Martin Stevens versus OpenAI. Just to clarify right up front, this is not a lawsuit.
Right.
Martin has actually requested a voluntary quiet period to sort of pause releasing public information. There is no known progress on a settlement. We are really just hoping for the best right now. But we can report that the dead man switch has not been activated.
Which is great news.
Exactly, meaning Martin is completely safe both physically and legally. So that's the update there. Now on to today's topic. I want you to imagine taking a pair of heavy hedge clippers to a really delicate computer circuit board.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
It is. You might successfully snip the exact wire you were aiming at, sure, but you completely shatter the surrounding hardware in the process. And over the past couple of years, corporate boards have essentially taken hedge clippers to their workforces. And while they've been using artificial intelligence as the blade.
And now they're just staring at the sparks and the broken silicon, right? Realizing they didn't just cut costs, they completely severed the lifelines of their operations.
Exactly. I mean, recent data reveals a staggering 55% of companies that made AI-driven layoffs now actually regret the decision.
Wow, over half.
Over half. Quality dropped, morale tanked, and costs actually increased. So the central question for our debate today is whether this desperate rehiring proves that current AI is simply unsuited to replace human judgment.
Or if this is just a massive, frankly embarrassing failure of corporate implementation.
Right, and you tend to look at this as a strict technological limitation, right?
Wait, no, you're the one who sees the tech as the ceiling here.
Yes, sorry, I do. I argue the technology itself has very strict limitations. It excels at routine tasks, but fails unpredictably at complex edge cases. It's an augmentation tool, full stop.
Whereas I argue the technology is actually highly capable. The real failure here is that companies are violently bolting AI onto, outdated hierarchies and just completely mismanaging the human element of the transition.
Well, let's look at the financial reality of that transition, because it's bleak. The rehiring costs for these companies are now 3 times higher than their initial layoff savings.
3 times? That's brutal.
It's insane, and it exposes what we call the 80-20 problem. AI handles the easy 80% of standardized tasks brilliantly, but it completely drops the ball on the complex 20%. And that 20% is what dictates customer retention.
Right, the nuances.
Yeah, take the McDonald's AI drive-thru trial, for example.
Oh, I know where this is going. The caramel ice cream with butter order.
Exactly, the caramel and butter order. But, why did it do that? It wasn't just some funny glitch. The system fundamentally couldn't parse basic human conversational hesitation. Or it couldn't filter out background audio crosstalk from someone in the passenger seat. Or, look at Klarna's push to replace 700 workers. The AI just lacks the contextual judgment and institutional knowledge to navigate anything outside a rigid, predefined script.
Look. You can't blame the blade when the surgeon is basically cutting blindfolded. The failure at Klarna, and honestly in all these other layoffs, is organizational debt.
Organizational debt?
Yeah. There's a recent Gartner study of billion-dollar companies, and it showed 80% of them piloted AI alongside workforce reductions, but the layoffs alone showed absolutely zero correlation with higher ROI.
Zero?
Zero, because they rushed to cut headcount just to satisfy investors, right? Without actually redesigning the workflow. If organizations actually restructured into what the futurist Jonathan Brill calls octopus organizations.
Okay, wait, an octopus organization? I'm assuming you don't mean just adding more tentacles to the C-suite.
No, not quite. Think about how an octopus works. It has a central brain, but its arms have these localized neural clusters, right?
Right.
So they can make autonomous decisions within certain physical parameters. In a corporate structure, you establish very clear risk bands and two-way doors.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, you dictate exactly when an AI can act autonomously, that's a two-way door where mistakes are easily reversible, and when it must escalate to a human. Companies deployed AI without those structural safety nets.
But see, you can build all the risk bands you want. The organizational structure cannot fix what the machine fundamentally cannot do.
I don't know about that.
Well, look at the recent Agent DS benchmark study. They tested 17 complex data science challenges across 6 industries. And when they let fully autonomous AI models, like Claude and GPT-4o, the big language models,
Right, the heavy hitters.
yeah, when they let them operate on their own, the AI consistently fell below the median of human participants.
But were they given proper constraints?
They were given the data and the goal, and they failed to leverage multimodal signals. For example, they couldn't synthesize image data with text effectively.
Because they aren't designed to just be cut loose like that.
But they also stubbornly stuck to generic processing pipelines, rather than adapting their methods to the specific nuance of the data set. So how on earth can an octopus organization fix an AI's inability to handle edge case reasoning?
Because in a properly designed system, you don't ask the AI to handle the edge case reasoning autonomously.
But that's what companies are trying to do.
And that's their mistake. You're expecting the large language model to act as a seasoned human manager rather than a highly capable tentacle. The system failed in those benchmarks because it lacked a human setting the strategic boundaries.
Okay, but when you sever that human element with layoffs, you don't just lose a manager to set boundaries. You lose undocumented context. You lose informal quality standards.
You mean the office water cooler knowledge?
Yes, exactly. This is institutional knowledge collapse. It is the accumulated understanding of how a business actually works under the hood. You cannot encode the messy reality of office relationships and tacit knowledge into an LLM's training data. It is literally impossible.
Look, I completely disagree that institutional knowledge is the main issue here.
Really?
Yes. The true productivity drain isn't the lost knowledge of the people who left. It is the profound psychological impact on the people who stayed. We are talking about workplace survivor syndrome.
The anxiety of just waiting for the next round of cuts.
Exactly. Think about it. A brutal, AI-driven layoff breeds intense fear, hypervigilance, and massive risk aversion. The surviving employees realize the company views them as expendable algorithms.
Right, just lines on a spreadsheet.
Yes. And what happens next? Your absolute best employees, the high performers who actually have options in the job market, they voluntarily walk out.
That makes sense.
If leadership had just transparently communicated or, adjusted performance metrics and redistributed workloads instead of demanding business as usual from a traumatized team, the AI integration would have worked.
That's a fair point about morale, but I think the broader market is proving that replacement just doesn't work mechanically. I mean, economy-wide, the net workforce reduction from AI is only around 4%.
Which is a fraction of what was predicted.
Right. It is vastly lower than the 40% reduction everyone was terrified about 2 years ago. The consensus is clear. Augmentation outperforms replacement.
I agree with that part.
Yeah. Going back to Agent DS, the highest performing solutions weren't humans working alone, and they certainly weren't autonomous AIs. They were interactive human-AI collaborations.
Where the human diagnoses and the AI implements.
Precisely. Humans did the strategic thinking, AI handled the rapid coding.
And that is the winning formula right now, yes. But you have to look at the trajectory here. Companies are still wading through massive organizational debt.
You think the 4% will go up?
Absolutely. As they clear that debt and restructure workflows to be truly AI native, the ratio of humans needed is going to shrink. Look at who they are actually rehiring in that 55% regret metric.
It's not the managers.
No. They aren't bringing back their expensive senior staff. They are heavily relying on lower-wage ghost workers or offshoring, right? Just to bridge the gap where the AI currently stumbles.
Meaning they still desperately want to automate, they just lack the infrastructure to do it properly.
Precisely. The intent to replace is alive and well. The execution is just catching up.
Well, when you look at all of this, the 80-20 problem, the inability of LLMs to parse complex multimodal context, and the collapse of institutional knowledge, it really points to one reality for me.
Which is?
AI is a powerful accelerator, sure, but it fundamentally requires human domain expertise and contextual judgment to function in complex environments.
And from my perspective, the current landscape of corporate regret is mostly a symptom of outdated structures. I mean, companies are struggling to adapt to a decentralized operational model, and they are punishing their workforce for their own lack of structural foresight.
Well, I think we can certainly agree that the initial hype of simplistic brute force job replacement has backfired on almost everyone who tried it.
Oh, absolutely. The data is undeniable on that point. Thoughtful integration is the only sustainable path forward, whether you view that as human augmentation or a total organizational redesign.
Well said. And honestly, the source material offers incredible, detailed insights into the economics of human-AI collaboration and the psychology of workplace survivor syndrome.
It's definitely worth a read.
So we highly recommend listeners explore it further. Thank you for joining us on The Debate. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell so you catch all of our future discussions.
Thanks, everyone.
And as you watch companies navigate this transition, remember the circuit board. You can carefully rewire a system with patience and precision. But if you start blindly swinging the hedge clippers, you are going to end up with a lot of broken pieces.